So, I think there's a lot we've covered here in terms of the intersection, and I think the skill set piece is certainly important. And ultimately, when we talk about delivering for a project like this, the skill sets must be different than the old school way of doing business. Can you guys reflect a little bit around, in your current role, how skill sets of those in delivery have changed the approach?
Yeah, so I think what we see as we're working with our clients, they've found that disruptive piece of technology, or have that great proof of concept. Working with the clients, and there's the types of technology skills that need to be brought to bear on that are people who can actually translate and interact with business people as well. So there is no longer that BA, developer, test kind of segregation of duties perhaps that happened. You need people who can work across multiple dimensions. You need to have those teams which have got all of those skills in one place so that they can actually rapidly take a concept and start to develop that out and flesh that out and get that brought to market.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's where you have one of the big challenges with these kind of projects, which is that, you can build a perfect team of 5-10 multi-skilled people who can interact with the business, are very agile, can do a bit of everything. Mm-hmm. But the question is, how do you do that at scale? How do you actually, once you have a very large transformation that needs to happen and you need to fill teams of hundreds of people, it's going to be very difficult if there are hundreds of people with these kind of skills. And I guess that's where we focus as an organization, is how do you scale these large setups? How do you retain the right level of agility, business proximity, and the right level of technology skills, while actually scaling this up, and while delivering this, starting to bring in nearshore locations as well in the mix, to be able to get the right price point, but also to access new talent pools that you might not be able to access fully onshore. So there's a whole set of techniques and processes and tools that we bring to the table to actually to make this happen at scale.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because often what we do see, obviously, your client has found the smart new disruptive technology they want to leverage, or they've got the great new proof of concept. How do they get that to market rapidly? How do they scale up the teams to develop that? And I think looking at how these new forms of developing these new teams work in the corporate environment is also something we focus a lot on. How do you set them up? What level of autonomy? How do you measure these types of teams? How closely connected or not should they be to the rest of the business? There's a lot of emerging thinking. Obviously, a lot of us will be familiar with the Spotify tribes and squads type mentality, but how does that fit with perhaps organizations which have a lot more traditional and legacy elements to their business as well? So I think thinking through those challenges, how to set up those teams, how do they scale effectively and work within the environments they're in, is probably a big thing. How we're focusing with our clients and working at how they should get the right skills and measure the right things for those capabilities.
And within the skill set, location assignment, if you will, I think there's a lot changing from the old argument that nearshore is east to west only in terms of its delivery, right? So I think what's actually happening is nearshore is a part of the overall distribution of delivery. So you could be in India, and that's actually considered nearshore for Asia Pacific, whilst being in Poland is nearshore into Western Europe, the UK. And I think the offshore agile is just something that's really not possible. Not because it's a time zone issue, but it's just the vendors that are only approaching delivery from a true offshore perspective, where they're relying upon one country to do delivery. It's quite difficult to do agile transformation, which is, again, a big part of this intersection from that perspective. So when you both are looking at location choice for a vendor or advising on that for the client, how does that play a role within the skill set discussion?
Yeah, from our perspective, there's one key aspect for our clients, and specifically with looking at digital projects, which is that a lot of our clients in financial services will look to bring in skills and talent from other industries. So from industries which have probably embraced new technologies or new approaches of new ways of doing things earlier than financial services. And that plays also a big role for us in terms of selecting the right location for our clients. Is where do we have existing talent working for the automotive sector, working for the travel industry, that actually can bring in the right things and the right mentality and approach to financial services, for instance. So that's another angle for us in terms of selecting the right place to deliver the work from.
I mean, from our perspective, when we're advising clients, that's a vital component of what they're looking to get and understanding how they expect to work with the provider. Firstly, I think you should always focus on what are the capabilities you want and what is the type of relationship you think you need to have with that provider, rather than thinking about, should I be in India, should I be in Poland, should I be in the Ukraine, should I be in Vietnam? those are functions of having understood what you need from the provider, where the right capabilities are, and then you can think about that, as opposed to going, right, I think we should have some capability out in Poland. Those are all valid questions, but after you've understood the delivery model you need. I also think you're right to say that true, collaborative teams working in an agile way are quite difficult to achieve in a purely arm's length offshore model, right? Not only the time zone challenges you alluded to, but just the ways of working. It can be done, but it's certainly more challenging, and we're seeing increasing amounts of teams shifting where either you've got more co-location or you've got places that you can interact with more easily because it's a short flight away, etc. So yeah, I do think, similarly also that the cultural interaction is important, especially if you're working much more closely with these teams than you used to before. That cultural affinity also becomes more important in choosing location.